I'm concerned about execution. I want it to come. I want it to come off well, and I want to play it well. And I don't like mistakes. I don't try to. At least I have plenty of them, but I try to do a good job. But at the same time, Greg, this is my passion: is if I'm so wrapped up, in the execution of that worship set, and I miss the lady on the third row that has tears streaming down her face, and I really don't even care because I'm so worried about executing this and how this is going to look and how this is going to sound. And does it sound better than the other church? When the lady out there is reaching out, and I should have did that chorus 2 more times, but I didn't even see her because I'm not worried about that anymore.
Welcome, everyone. Today we are blessed to have Jeromy Hoffee on the podcast. Jeromy is a gifted musician who has taught thousands of singers and musicians across America. He currently serves as the director of UPCI Music Ministry. We had a great conversation about his life and ministry. We discussed the importance of serving in the local church, the resurgence of apostolic songwriting, the balance between excellence in music ministry and spiritual sensitivity, and much more. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm excited to be here. This is going to be great, and I cannot wait.
I think this is almost like a year in the making, this recording. We have been talking about it back and forth for a while, and we finally actually scheduled it out and made it happen.
That's true. I was like, I hope he doesn't think I don't want to do this. I just scheduling is crazy, but I'm so glad we were able to do it.
Yeah, well, we've known each other for a long time. The first time I met you was actually before I even went to Gateway. I grew up in the Missouri district, and so I was in and around Gateway for a number of years before I actually started attending there. I think I was maybe like 15, 16. But the first time we actually really got to know each other a bit was when I was at Gateway as an 18-year-old, and you and Sister Hoffee were leading the music there. Yeah. And it's just awesome to have you on, and you've been such a big part of our lives the last number of years as well, coming out to Sydney, you and Sister Hoffee. You've been a blessing to the church, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation and introducing you, if people don't already know you, but introducing you to the podcast audience, because you have a wealth of information, and this is going to be a great conversation.
I'm excited, man, for sure. I do remember those days back in the day. The 18-year-old Greg, it was awesome.
Well, I like to start all these conversations by our audience getting to know the guest a little bit. So some may already know about you, but it'd be good to hear a bit of your story just so they can see where you're coming from. So, Brother Hoffee, if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit of your background with us.
Well, I'd be glad to. I don't know how far back you want me to go. I'll do maybe the condensed version. I grew up in Illinois. So I'm not too far away from St. Louis, but I grew up in central Illinois in a little town called Centralia, Illinois, is where I first my first memories of growing up and music and being in the church. And then I was about I think I was in 8th grade, 9th grade. We moved to southern Illinois to a town called Herrin, Illinois, which is where really I spent most of my growing up years before moving to St. Louis. But so grew up in Illinois, loved it, very blessed to grow up in churches that were very musical. So I was really, really blessed in that regard. And you know what I mean? There was just a church that music, the culture there was so rich in both of those churches. And so really thankful for that. Grew up playing instruments, playing drums, playing bass. Bass was like my first love, bass guitar is like still my probably my favorite instrument to play. Even though somewhere in my 20s, I was like, well, I got to make a living. I better go to the piano. No, I still love playing bass, but I predominantly play keyboard now. But I just grew up playing, loving church, loving music, playing in church probably since I was about 12. Started playing bass in services probably around 12. I never forgot it. Never forgot like some of my first services I got to play for youth service and things like that. And just kind of the impact that it started making on me, and didn't even realize, what it was doing, but I knew I loved it. I knew I loved the feeling. I loved getting to play for those services. And anyway, And kind of transition. I don't know if you want like my whole story, my whole testimony as far as getting into music. I can go ahead and share a
Hmm.
little bit of that.
We
And
can get there. We can get there in a moment. But before we get there,
yeah,
this is a burning question for people who are from the Central Illinois and
yeah.
Missouri area. Cards fan or Cubs fan?
Oh goodness, there's no question. Cardinals fan, no questions. That's an easy one.
I remember mentioning Heron, Illinois. I remember I was in Bible quizzing growing up,
Yeah.
so I
Oh yeah.
went to the Heron Invitational. I think,
Yeah.
man, I was like 12 years old, 12, 13 years old, and
Wow.
my memory there was, I think my brother was quizzing. I'm not sure if I was on his team or not, but there was a young lady there from Louisiana, and from Denham Springs, I believe it was Denham Springs,
Okay.
Louisiana, and she's now married to Jonathan Walker, Lindsay Walker,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's the first time that I had met her. Was
Yep.
was that at event? I think they won that event. They were amazing that year. They won
Jonathan Walker
nationals that
won
year.
all those events. I used to, yeah, he was amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's going way back in the memory banks, but
Yeah.
really cool. So yeah, so how'd you find your way into music ministry? You have this passion for music. Started
Yeah.
off on the bass, transitioned a bit to keys. Been playing for church since you were
Yeah.
12, but then at some point you got serious beyond just being a church musician.
Sure. Yeah. I would say honestly in my early 20s, 21, 22, somewhere around there. I really, well, let me back up. When I was 18 is when I really transitioned to piano. So I tell everybody, I'm like, look, I was a late, I was kind of a late bloomer when it comes to piano. I really devoted myself to bass for all those years. And then around 18, I was like, man, I want to play keyboard. I started to ask my pastor's wife, show me this, show me that. What chords are you playing? So I started that way, just learning from other people. And probably by the time I was about 21 or 22, I was playing for our church there in Heron. And I, for whatever reason, I don't even know if I can remember this exact, how this exactly went down, but I would say by the time I was about 22, 23, I was playing, taking basically the music program. I mean, they kind of just, it was a gradual thing. I remember the first stipend I got for playing for my church, and it was a weekly stipend, and I can't even remember what it was, $200 or something like that. I can't remember, 200 or 300, but it was like I started to feel that pull towards like, wow, my church values me. I bring something, I feel God's leading in that direction, and that was kind of probably the beginning of where I really felt like this is more than just something I enjoy. There was a passion there. There was a burden
Hmm.
there. And that's kind of where I started to really feel that tug of like, I may end up doing this, in my life. When you're 18, 20 years old, you're still trying to figure out what you're going to do and where you're going to land and what your ministry is going to be. And I don't know. I think mine, I tell people all the time, we talk about the will of God and how sometimes I think we make it too mysterious and we just overdo that. Sometimes I think you just go with what you do well, and God will
Hmm.
bless that, and God will open doors if it's supposed to be. And that's kind of what happened in my life. Is I enjoyed music, I loved it, but I believe that God does give you those desires, and I believe that He placed those desires in me, and I just ran with it. It
Hmm.
became. I tell people, I don't know that people know my whole story growing up years, but I don't have a lot of family in the church, and so the church became my family. I mean, it was like my everything. To be quite honest, I was there all the time. I basically felt like I lived there, but I loved it. It was my whole life was circled around it. I say this: music and Bible quizzing really saved my life.
Hmm.
Really did.
Wow.
Those two things were so instrumental in my life growing up that I'm just so thankful for them. So I'm very passionate about both of those things. But
Hmm.
anyway, early 20s, started playing for my church, loved it, and didn't really. I didn't really ever look back. I didn't see myself doing anything else but music ministry. Wasn't sure where it was going to lead. Never dreamed that it would lead where it has led me today. I never saw that coming, but I walked through every open door. To be quite honest. 25 years old, 25, I think it was 20, 25 or 26 years old. I started feeling like a little bit of restlessness, like I wanted to do this for a living, maybe for a larger church, maybe start, see what else was out there, basically. So I went to my pastor, told him, I was feeling like there might be a move in my future. He kind of released me to at least explore, and started to go to travel to different churches and do clinics, and kind of just interview somewhat. I had an opportunity in Southern California at Brother Koppel's church. I had an opportunity in Beaumont, Texas. Both of them. I was like 25, 26 years old. I was single, and it was like crazy. To me at that time, it seemed like a lot of money to be able to be a music director. And it was really exciting time. And I got a call from Brother Tim Dugas right in the middle of all that. Didn't even know who that was. He was the president of Gateway College. And he said, a friend of mine told me about you and said you might be looking to land somewhere. He said, would you ever be interested in teaching at a college? And I was like, well, I said, I'd never even been to a Bible college. I didn't even know what they were about. I'm just being honest. I was like, but there was something there that I felt so strongly about. So I went and visited, and I was like, God, if this is what you want from me, it was a decrease in pay. It was quite a bit less than those churches were offering. You know how Gateway didn't have any money.
Yeah, I know about schools. Yeah.
So it was considerably less, but it was like, I just felt in my spirit, I was like, this is probably what I'm really supposed to do, because I love teaching. I have always loved to teach. I was teaching private lessons since I was probably 17. And so the teacher in me, the teaching aspect, that's what really, I was like, God, this will be an amazing opportunity. I don't care that it's less money. I feel like this is the thing to do. And so I just said yes to it. And I tell my wife now, I'm like, Brother Dugas was a brave man to hire a single 26-year-old guy he didn't even really know, and to come and lead this program at Gateway. But I'm so thankful he did, because it really was a blessing in my life. It was absolutely the right move for my life and for the trajectory of my life. So that was probably one of the biggest decisions I think I ever made in terms of ministry, as far as in that component of my life. So that was pretty cool. That's where I met you.
Yeah. Well, and you have this passion for teaching, and your fingerprints are on musicians all over the country, all over the world, because of that, because of your ability to teach at Gateway, and then you've continued that on with UPCI Music Ministry. But I thought, what is some advice that you would have for a young musician or a developing musician, singer, worship leader, when it comes to taking that next step in music ministry, where it's not just I have a talent, I have an ability, but this is something that I want to do. This is more like a calling.
That's a great question. I get asked that question some, or even more times I get asked the question, and I don't mean to veer off of your question, but it kind of goes in the same direction. But, how can I get opportunities, or how can I, get this or head that direction? And I honestly feel this. I think sometimes we try to make things happen, and I'm not a big fan of that, because usually we make a mess out of it, to be honest. I really, and this may sound cliche, but I don't mean it to, but I really feel like I tell young people, serve your local church, stay faithful to your local church, dig in at your church. Like, if you want things in your life to open up, or you want doors to open up, or you want to pursue this as a ministry and as a vocation, start serving your local church for free. Don't worry about payment. Don't worry about a career in that. Just see where that leads you. Start some lessons, start teaching people in your church. I started grabbing like 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds that looked like they had an interest in music. And I was like, man, I'll teach you. I'll show you what I know, because I've always liked to share. I've always liked to, and I'll say this real quick too. This is something I do have a pet peeve of mine, is people that do play at a good level, not having patience or not having time to at least show what God's given us, because someone showed me. I remember people being patient with me, and I was probably annoying, because I was like, man, show me that. What did you do there? How did you play that? I was like a sponge. So I'm all that to say, serve your local church, start giving back, be faithful to your pastor, that kind of thing. I know we're like, oh, we hear that all the time. It's still so true.
Yeah.
Opportunities and doors will open when God sees your faithfulness in small things. And I believe that I believe in my life. I believe I didn't like, in fact, sometimes I think I don't even know somehow how I got here because I just started out just loving music and loving the Lord and loving people and playing in my church. I just loved it. And a door would open. I'd walk through it. And I just kind of was like, God, I don't know where this was going to go, but I love the journey. So
Mm.
all that to say, Greg, I would say this: be faithful to your church, love your pastor, love your people in your church, and invest in them. And I think good things will happen for sure.
Yeah, you always have to start there, especially if this is going to be a calling and it's not just a
Yeah.
talent or something that you want to do, and and taking it to that next level with submission, which is exactly your story, right? You were saying you got started in the local church, you served your local church, they saw something in you, but
Yeah.
then you had this stirring, this desire for
Mhm.
more, and you knew it was from God, and
Yeah.
obviously your pastor, who you were under, you were under his spiritual authority. He released you to look around,
Yeah.
and that made all the difference in your life. You know, imagine if you weren't under that spiritual authority, then
Yeah.
they check back in with your pastor. It's like, hey, I don't really know this Hoffee
Uh-huh.
guy. What do you think? And like, well, he doesn't listen to his pastor.
That's
Well,
so
then that
true.
door closes, right?
So true.
So
I think everything, when it's done correctly, it always comes back as a blessing for sure.
yeah.
That's good what you said there.
Well, you along with being, I mentioned it briefly, but along with leading at Gateway Bible College, you're now the director for UPCI Music Ministry,
Hmm.
and the UPCI in general, not just the music ministry department, which is phenomenal that you guys are doing this as well, but the UPCI in general has been releasing a lot of great songs. People affiliated, I guess, churches,
Hmm.
ministers, so on, affiliated with the UPCI are releasing a lot of great original songs. And I remember growing up, I mentioned this to most music artists who come on this podcast. I remember growing up, and we just had basically what was being released from the Bible colleges, and that was
Uh-huh.
it,
That was
you
it.
know? And you would try and get your hand on one of their CDs when they came to town, but really you're listening to everybody else. And especially within church, like the the colleges did great music, but
Yeah.
your choir would do that. You wouldn't really do those for worship songs that often. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm thinking about this from a teenager's perspective. I moved over here when I was quite young,
Hmm.
but the last like 5-6 years, it's incredible the amount of music coming out and the opportunities that churches have to play apostolic music, to worship to songs that are written by apostolics. Why do you think it is so important that this continues, that apostolics write, that they produce songs, that they invest time and money? Because it does
Yeah.
require money, it does require time to do this. But why do you think that's so important?
Because we should have been all along. um, I don't know if I know the answer of why it's why we took a 20-year period there off,
Mm,
where we just kind of stopped releasing, stopped writing. I'm not saying everybody did, but it wasn't, when I think back, I'm old enough to remember kind of a little bit of Lenny Wolf, and and I think he was somebody that really was pushing apostolic music way back when no one
mm,
really was. He was like writing, he was producing, putting songs out. But after that, honestly, I felt like it just kind of went away for quite a while. And you're right. I mean, I grew up, we did everybody else's music but ours. It wasn't really written by apostolics. It wasn't bad music. It was good music, good songs, but it wasn't really ours. Fast forward to today, it is crazy now,
mm.
which is something I've literally prayed for, asked for. So God, I think it's time, I mean, but we've seen this over, like you said, 5 or 6 years. I would say, in my opinion, the last 7 to 8 years has been just a gradual climb, just constantly. I don't know if you saw this, you probably did. The Friday before General Conference, there were 7 apostolic singles
Yeah,
released. That
yeah,
was
that was
crazy.
awesome. That was
That
so
was
cool.
crazy. That to me made me smile because I was like, God, that's an amazing thing to see where this is going, and I'm thankful for it because, to answer your question, there's nobody that writes and there's no one that can sing and record, in my opinion, like an apostolic, like a Holy Ghost filled apostolic that knows the truth, that has the truth, the full truth. And I just feel like there's such a powerful message in those songs. Now we can write shallow songs just like anybody can, but I do believe we try our best to put songs out there that I think minister to our churches. And I'll say this: I was going to tell you this, and you've probably seen this too. Kudos to our churches for doing our songs.
Yeah.
I didn't know, Greg, how that would. I didn't know when I saw our. When I say our, I just mean apostolic songwriters and artists starting to really put out more and more music. I wondered how our churches would respond to that, because we've been doing non-apostolic, Christian songs in our churches for years. I didn't know if it was going to be like, we'll just kind of wait and see. But I feel like our churches have jumped in and our set lists are full of apostolic written songs now.
Yeah, it was cool to see at UPCI conference how many of those songs were written, produced by apostolics. It's really cool to see.
21 of the 27 songs that were done at General Conference were apostolic written.
And you don't force them to pick certain songs, right?
No.
The directors are picking different songs.
I mean, I choose some of those, but at the same time, there's worship leaders that choose some of those. And yes, I mean, that's just an amazing thing. I shared that, I think, with the general board. I said, this is an amazing thing that I'm seeing. I mean, I definitely see a day when it's just going to be completely all our own writers and artists. And I think it's a blessing. And here's the thing. I think we've always kind of wanted it. I think the quality has caught up with us. Does that make sense? I think the quality now is to a place where we're like, you know what? I'm proud of our own songs. I'm proud of our own writers. It sounds really good. It's as good as anybody else's. And it sounds like it's written from an apostolic perspective. And it just is, it's refreshing. I was thinking about this question, and Sunday in our church service, I think, close to 75% of the songs we did were all apostolic artists.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Really cool.
I think it's important as well, like you mentioned it, that the perspective of the writer as well, and what they choose to write about in the worship song, like the things they choose to highlight. I noticed, and again, I could be wrong here, but I noticed that apostolic songs tend to be less self-focused and more focused on God, more focused on what He's doing, His power, His authority, that sort of thing. And that's what we highlight in our preaching. That's what we highlight in our teaching. And so it's good that they're complementing one another, That's so good. Again, that could just be some bias on my end. I'm definitely biased. Yeah. You look at my current playlist and it's almost all apostolic songs. I don't really listen to much of the other guys. Well, number one, I don't have to.
Right.
And number two,
your point right there,
quality is just as good.
Yes. Your point is there's no excuses anymore. You know what I'm saying? There's no excuses anymore. We have so much good music now that there's no reason to. You can, of course, and I still do at times, but I'm just thankful that we now have a different culture, and not to say what this has inspired the next generation coming up to do.
Yeah, that's true.
This has shown the way of the 15-year-olds, the 14-year-olds now are like, I cannot wait to start. I mean, not cannot wait. They're already doing it. They're already writing. I had someone send me a songwriter the other day. She's 14. She's written like 20 songs, and they sent them. I was like, this is unbelievable. I love that because it gives them hope. It gives them an outlet. It's just a great thing.
Yeah. And you see that it can be done. And so it inspires more people to do it. It's like, Malcolm Gladwell wrote that book, The Tipping Point. Mm-hmm. It's almost like that. It's like it got to critical mass to the point where it's like, okay, well, this can be done. It should be done. So now let's do it.
Let's do it. Right. Yeah. It's like, it's not scary anymore. It's not unattainable anymore. It can be done. You said it well.
Also, the cool thing is on the back end, because a lot of it, we focus on the artists, we focus on the musicians, which is awesome, and they're the ones that are putting in the time to actually write the songs, write the music for the songs. But on the back end, you've also got apostolics who are running the sound, capturing the sound, doing a great job. Media. Apostolics producing it, have the ability to do that, the video, and photography, and all that. So it's really cool to see it coming along.
I'm sure you saw, just the production side of General Conference. I mean, just the incredible job they did. It was just like, wow.
Yeah. And it's all homegrown talent,
It
which
is.
is really cool.
It's our own people, which is amazing. So I love that.
Well, we wanted to get to this because it kind of dovetails to what we were just talking about there. Um, that we can sometimes get lost in this, and um, as we've been referencing with your different positions when it comes to teaching ministry at Bible college, you also have your own music school. Do you still have
Yeah.
your music school?
Yeah. J. Oscar School of Music. A
Yeah.
little plug in
See,
there.
you've been doing that for decades.
I've been doing that. I think we've had it 16 years. Yeah,
Wow.
15 or 16 years.
Okay.
Actually, I just taught today. I just left there a couple hours ago. So,
Very cool.
yep.
And then you also do that through UPCI music ministry. You do clinics, and you've got like the Judah Project and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff.
Uh-huh.
That you're heavily involved in teaching and helping in that area. And obviously, you believe in that. You believe in the importance of skill. You believe
Yeah.
in the importance of developing that skill technique for musicians and
Definitely.
singers and all of that. But can we focus too much on excellence? Can we get lost in this pursuit of excellence and execution? What do you think about that?
Um, I most certainly think that we can. I most certainly think that we sometimes do. Um, I've always pushed excellence, and the Lord deserves our best, and He does. Excellence honors the Lord, which I still believe that. Um, and I do push for that because I think it's important. But to your question, I do believe that I worry sometimes that we've pushed that side so much that we can focus so much attention on execution, that I heard a message just this last week. An evangelist at our church, Brother Dan McLeod, he preached a message that
Yeah,
in
that's
fact I heard it
awesome.
the other day. I listened to it again, but he talked about we have so much. We've been blessed with so much. We put so much importance on things like production, and I think that's important, and our live streams and all those things. And he wasn't coming down on that, but he said we've been blessed with so much that we've become okay with less of God.
Mm,
And that was kind of his message, and it really spoke to me about, and the Lord's honestly been speaking to me for a while. There was a phrase that I couldn't get away from, that I felt like God just kind of started making me think about. And he said, we've made production more important than prayer. And that phrase, I could not get away from it. And I still can't, because I still believe in production. I still believe in all that goes into that. I love systems, and I love all that stuff, because I think it honors the Lord. I think God is a God of order and detail. And I think it's important to do all of those things. But I think that we get sometimes so focused on so much of the technical that I do fear that sometimes where is our where is our focus, I guess, on a true move of God? And when I say a true move of God, I mean when God's presence moves in. How are we responding to that? How are we moving from that? How are we flowing with that? Are we moving on to the next song? Are we are we making room? Are we
mm,
making room? Are we on purpose? Is that our true ultimate goal? And not to get too preachery, but at the same time, is it about our webcast and how good we look? I heard a phrase the other day that I wrote it down. It said, "Comparison is the enemy of joy.
mm-hmm.
Comparison is the enemy of joy." And I was like, wow, because I mean, we can't get away. Social media is what it is. It's here. It's a good tool, but I do believe that spirit of comparison is a real thing. I tell our musicians, I'm sorry to go off on the different tangent here, but you know, when I grew up playing in church, I didn't have a camera right here beside me looking down at my hands while I'm playing. I didn't have a
Mm,
camera in my face while I was playing. So I didn't worry about that stuff, but I do have it now. And so I have to, me personally, I have to tell myself, I am not worrying about that camera. I am not worrying about what I look on Instagram or Facebook. I'm not worrying about that. I cannot go there. I'm not going to play to that camera or do something because in my mind I'm thinking, okay, right now I'm on camera, so I'm going to do this. Because to
Mm.
me that's a slippery slope. To me that's a scary place to be, and I don't want us. I know I'm kind of going off at your original question, but I feel to say this, we just have to be careful with that. Is it an important tool? Yes. Am I against it? Not at all. Not at all. I love everything that our church is doing in terms of production, but I personally have to be careful. I have to teach our musicians and singers, we're not in this, we're not doing this for those reasons. Block that stuff out. When I cannot worry about cameras and I cannot worry about all of that, I'm concerned about execution. I want it to come. I want it to come off well, and I want to play it well. And I don't like mistakes. I don't try to. At least I have plenty of them, but I try to do a good job. But at the same time, Greg, this is my passion: is if I'm so wrapped up, if I'm so wrapped up in the execution of that worship set, and I miss the lady on the third row that has tears streaming down her face, and I really don't even care
Mm.
because I'm so worried about executing this and how this is going to look and how this is going to sound, and does it sound better than the other church, when the lady out there is reaching out, and I should have did that chorus 2 more times, but I didn't even see her because I'm not worried about that anymore. That's my point, is we can focus so much on the execution. Yes, we should make it a priority, but we also have got to make room for what is the Spirit of the Lord doing in that moment. How is the congregation responding? Are we even caring about that moment? I was in an altar service this Sunday. Altar service was wrapping up. Musicians were still playing with me. I had the singers go down. I said in the talkback mic to the singers, we're going to play this longer, guys. Stay here with me. We're not done yet. There were 2 people in the altar. One was way on the left, one was over here by the right by me, but I saw them. Not kudos to me for seeing them. I'm just saying we have to be sensitive. What is our purpose there? I could have shut it down and they could have turned on, a CD. That's fine, I'm sure. But the ministry of what we do has got to stay at the forefront of our minds. I knew what that band was doing. They were providing an atmosphere for those people to continue to pray. And I felt passion in that moment to say to that band, this is where it's at. This is what it's about. This is what it's about. These moments right here. I've been in those altars when that music ministered to me and I heard it, and it ministered to my spirit because it provided that atmosphere for me to pray. And so I'm passionate about this. I'm emotional about this because it's really, really, really scaring me that we can sometimes forget why we do all of what we do. Why do we do it? We do it because we want to honor the Lord with what He's given us. We want to provide that atmosphere for people to find the Lord and to soften their hearts. And I think when you step back from all the technical and all the production that we do, I talked about General Conference. It was amazing. Um, our churches do a fantastic job with all of this, but I think we always have to step back and we always have to pray. I'll put that in there. We always have to pray that God keep the main thing the main thing as we
Mm.
pursue excellence, as we pursue, you remember this at Gateway, we used to have a conference there called Unprecedented Praise. That was the name of the conference. Remember that? And the tagline, I'll never forget this, was striving for excellence with a passion for ministry. But I want to be careful and not say, let's not strive for perfection with a passion for ministry. Let's strive for excellence with a passion for ministry. I think that takes the pressure off, and it pulls off those, and it makes us keep our focus really where it should be. So, long answer to say, do you think we can go too far with execution and excellence? Yes, I do believe we can, and I do believe we have somewhat. But I
Mm.
think the Lord's calling us back to say, you can have all the resources and all the tech. I love it. I think we should have it. I'm not saying go away from it. I don't want to. I enjoy it. I love loops and tracks and all those things, and everything that we have in our services. But let's keep our main focus on what is going on in that congregation. Is people really are they just singing songs back to us, or is God's presence really falling? I get frustrated when I go into a service and God's presence doesn't fall and people's lives are not really truly impacted during a worship service.
Mm.
I do. I get frustrated with that. I'm
Yeah.
not saying every worship service that the service is just going to blow open and there's no preaching. I'm not saying that. But I am saying I think every worship service there should be an encounter. There
Oh yeah.
should be an encounter at some point. If not, I think it's motions. I think it's just killing
Mm.
time. And it sounds good, makes our church look good, but is it really, really impacting people? Are people really having any kind of a breakthrough in those moments of worship? I know I'm kind of getting off topic and I'm going a little deep here, but
No, that's great.
it is passionate. It's something I'm passionate about because I think it's such a vital thing in our churches. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's important someone in the current position that you're in talk about this issue and sound the alarm if you see that there's
Yeah.
a problem there. You know, we can't be so focused on the reach of live stream, the reach of social media, reels, and so on and so forth, that we forget about the moment, you know,
Yeah.
what's happening right there, the people that are actually there. Because, yeah, people will be impacted online for sure. You know, people may find a church, and we talk about that.
Yeah.
And other aspects of this podcast, we have conversations with people who are heavily involved in live stream
Hmm.
and social media and all of that. And I believe in that. And a
I do
lot of
too.
what I do revolves around that. This
Yeah.
podcast, you know, is in line with that as well. But you can't be so focused on that you forget the real reason why you're there and the people that are in the room,
Yeah.
right? You're not preaching past them. You're not singing past them, but they're there
Yeah.
to encounter God, and we're there to give them that opportunity
Yeah.
through our dedication, through our sacrifice.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that because I don't want that to come across as I diminishing other areas of ministry because I believe there's a lot of areas of ministry in the church when it comes to all the things you just mentioned. But I do think our ultimate focus. I think you know, um, man, Dr. Hughes. He
Mm-hmm.
preached a message. And I have it on my laptop, and I play it from time to time because I want to keep remembering it. I don't want to ever forget it. And Greg, he made a statement in there that I will never forget, and it's really impacted me recently. But he said praise without prayer will lead to deception.
Mm.
I hadn't heard people say that before. He said praise without prayer will lead you to deception. He said because you'll start to think that your sin is okay with the Lord. And that was deep for me because I thought, you know what? We've got to get our singers and musicians to make sure that prayer life is still there because it's very easy. I'm going to sound another alarm. It's very easy to rely on natural ability, giftings, things that God's given us. He's gifted us. I made a statement at General Conference to the band before we ever started the practices on Monday. I made a statement, and I'll say it on here. You know, we hear people say this a lot. Usually you'll say this like 2 minutes before church start. Lord, help us. We can't do this without you. That's not true. You can do it without him. And no one wants to say that, but many times we do. And that sobering thought is, what if we do go down that road of trying to do this without him? That's a scary, slippery slope, in my opinion, because natural ability and gifting and things of that nature, you can go through motions and fool a lot of people. And so I'm on a tear here to say, make sure keep our prayer lives strong, because I believe that's what balances us, is that prayer life, because it's easy to rely on our own abilities. It's easy to rely on talent that the Lord gave us in the first place,
Mm.
So anyway, it's just, I want to keep sounding that alarm to say, let's keep that prayer life. I think if that prayer life stays strong, we keep our focus always. It just always works that way.
Yeah, and I think that should continue to be the difference between apostolic music, apostolic worship, and the rest,
So
is
true.
that the focus is still on him,
So
regardless.
true.
There may be a camera there, but we're not focused on the camera. We're focused on him. You
Yes.
know, you might be doing a live recording, but the live recording is about him. It's
Yeah.
not about you. It's not about, and yeah, I think that was very good. And I think it's very needed to highlight that, along with all the other great things that we're highlighting in this conversation and what God is
Sorry,
doing.
I'm probably going a little different directions than you wanted.
No, I think it's great. No, that's exactly the direction we wanted to go,
Okay.
because along with all the stuff that we're talking about, you're highlighting that, yeah, all these great things are happening,
Yeah.
but we also need to make sure that we're centered, that we're focused on what truly matters, because all that stuff doesn't really matter, if we're not
Yeah.
in right relationship with God,
Yeah.
and if we're not doing these things for the right reasons.
Yeah. I mean, that scripture, a form of godliness, that thing
Mm.
scares me to
By
death
denying
sometimes.
it.
I'm just
Yep.
like, wow. We got to be careful. The Lord has blessed us so much. He's blessed our organization with such ability and writing and talent and giftings like crazy. But I want to keep that focus and keep us in check so we don't go off the rails.
Mm.
So,
Well, I ask this question to every guest who comes on the podcast. What is it that drives you when it comes to ministry,
hmm,
when it comes to following the will of God in your life? What is it that is that driving force for you?
that's a good question. You know, One thing that I think about many times is in ministry, there's a word I use a lot, but influence. Influence is a powerful thing. And I think, I think what drives me is knowing that with the ministry that the Lord has allowed me to be a part of, there is such influence there. And I think that's what keeps me up at night is knowing there's so much influence that you can have on people, on young people, on the next generation, on others, other countries, other churches. And I think that sometimes drives me to say, God, help me to be the leader that I need to be. Help me to be the voice. Let me be your voice. Help me to be the influence that you want me to be. I mean, I only know how to be me. That's all I know how to be. But I also know with ministry and with platform comes influence, and
Mm.
influence is a powerful thing. It is. It's a powerful tool. Because I tell people all the time. I tell people in my church, I'm like, you may think that no one notices you, but you're influencing someone always. And so ministry, when you said that, what drives you, ministry wise, I think that word influence, knowing that there's so much weighing on that. I want to be who I'm supposed to be. I want to influence how I'm supposed to influence, and I want to, I guess, take it serious. I want to make sure that I'm influencing in the right way. And I hope that helps to answer your question. But that is something I really think about when it comes to ministry,
Mm.
is
Well,
influence.
well, this has been a great conversation, and been grateful for you for providing your time for it. Before we get to the last little bit, we did talk about some apostolic music
Mm-hmm.
that's out and what UPCI Music Ministry is doing. What's the best way for people to get connected with some apostolic music they may not be aware of, or what you're doing with UPCI Music Ministry?
Well, we that's a good question. You could definitely, of course, iTunes, Spotify. There are a lot of apostolic playlists out there, for sure, that I think are a great way to find artists and find apostolic written songs. UPCI Music .com has, of course, a lot of tracks, charts, things of that nature with people's songs coming out. But I think really social media is a great tool for that. I found stuff recently that I'm like, who is this? I'll give you this. We did a song at General Conference by a girl in Ohio, Brandy Elsey. She had a song come out called "Ain't Seen Nothing Yet." I don't know if you. We opened the Thursday
Mm.
night service with that song. I just love that song. I thought it was an amazing song. She just is a worship leader in Ohio in a church out there and put a single out. So I mean, but I found it on social media. So I think
Mm.
that's a huge help is to, for all the negative stuff that's out there about social media, there's a lot of good that you can find people, that you can find artists and find new songs out there. Um, so I guess to answer your question, I would say Spotify, iTunes, social media, upcimusic.com. We're trying to put out new music. There's so many different artists putting out. I text, I think it was Draylon today. He's got a recording this week, I believe, putting out more songs. Just everybody is just, I think have caught the vision. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing.
Mm.
So to answer your question, keep searching it out because it is out there now. And I didn't mean to be mean earlier by saying there's no excuses, but there really aren't any excuses anymore. There is so much good apostolic music out there.
Yeah, there is so much. We'll link through to upcimusic.com and then also to socials, because I know you guys do share
Yeah,
new music, whether it's being produced by UPCI or by
sure.
somebody else who is tagging you guys in that.
Yeah.
Um, Well, as I said, it's been a great conversation
Thank you.
and grateful to have you on. I always give our guest the final word, a closing word that they can share with the audience. So I'll leave that over to you, Brother Hoffee. Feel free to share whatever you have on your heart for the audience of the podcast. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Greg, for allowing me to be on here. I really do enjoy these, enjoy talking with you, and love you and your wife, and you've been a great friend to us and always welcomed us. So I thank you for that on a personal note. And your podcasts are excellent. I think people really enjoy them, and make sure you watch his podcast. They're amazing. So, but I don't know if I have a final word other than just to say, you know, I've been doing this quite a while now, and I've seen a lot of people come and go. And to be honest, I tell our team here in St. Louis, you know, I say the thing that can make me most proud of you is to see you in this choir, to see you on this platform playing these instruments in 5 years, to see you here in 10 years, if the Lord tarries. That's what I want to instill in people and influence in people is it's this race is not given to the swift. It's those that really endure and get this down in our spirit and our heart and love the Lord and just live for him. I think we try to make this harder than it is sometimes. And I think for musicians and creatives and people that I am around a lot, you know, we can be up and we can be down, and you know, we can be I just want to teach people to be consistent with the Lord. I'm not always as consistent as I wish I was, but I know, you know, if I feel myself getting off track, I know where to come back to every time, and I know from whence cometh my help. So I want to encourage people, and I've been kind of on a little bit of a slant here lately of just that whole idea and notion that, you know, and I guess I'm guilty. That's why I'm kind of dealing with it in my own self is I'm very take charge of it myself. I can fix it myself. I think a lot of us are that way. But what happens is sometimes we can do that even in the church and in spiritual issues, and we can't fix that stuff. I want to encourage people to make sure we're leaning on the Lord. Yes, he's given us abilities. Yes, he's given us talent, and we give that back to him every Sunday. But let's make sure that we keep him, the Lord, our focus of everything we do, as we write, as we record new songs, as we do everything that we're doing, as we search out new lighting and new haze machines or whatever it is, you know, whatever we're you know, I read a scripture the other day in Proverbs talking about man makes a plan, but God's orders our steps. He's ahead of us. I mean, we can think, well, let's do this. I think it's important to do that and to have a plan and structure and move forward. I've got some new ideas for our team that I want us to push forward with, but I'm also going to implement that with a different regimen of prayer, that I want us to go a little deeper in prayer to keep that. And I think that's that balance, Greg, that I'm talking about tonight, is keep everything we do with that balance. And I think that will keep us in check. Our flesh, especially as creative people, we can just like go off the rails and just, oh, I got this idea, I want to do this. And we're just so opinionated, and we have, and we are creative. We are created to be that way. But I think God's saying, keep me the focus of all your creative ideas, because he's the reason why we're doing this. He's the one who gave me this ability to give back to him. So I guess if I can leave an encouraging word is, keep the main thing. Keep your focus on the Lord while you pursue excellence, while you pursue production, while you pursue writing, all these things that I love and you love. Let's keep the Lord at the center of our lives, and not just say it, but really mean it and live that way. And I think we will be blessed for it.